A suicide bomber killed 13 people and wounded more than 25 during rush hour in Kabul, Afghanistan. The attack happened at an entrance to the Afghanistan's Rural Rehabilitation and Development Ministry in Kabul as workers were leaving for home.
The attack comes as security has deteriorated in the city during recent months ahead of elections scheduled for October. The Islamic State has claimed responsibility for the attack, which happened when the suicide bomber detonated his explosives at the gate. Islamic State has claimed responsibility for many attacks in Kabul, but security officials say several are more likely to be the work of the Haqqani network, a group affiliated to the Taliban.
Ebrahim Deen is a researcher at think tank Afro-Middle East Centre, AMEC, and he now joins us via Skype. Ebrahim, thank you so much for joining us on the Globe. Now, both the Taliban and government have declared a brief truce. What do you make of these pronouncements?
I mean, I think first when we look at it, we need to see that the war has failed. Actually now control, as I said, between 45 and 65% of territory. Government only controls between 35 and 45% of territory. And so, if the ceasefire holds, and unfortunately in the past few days we've been seeing in violence, holding up or coming up to the ceasefire. But if this holds, maybe we can have a chance for political negotiation. However, for this to happen, we need to see a serious change in stance from both the Afghan government, but more importantly from the U.S. administration, who've stayed very mum on the ceasefire. Basically, the U.S. still kind of believes that the Taliban can be militarily defeated.
Now, how do you define the latest spate of attacks in Afghanistan?
Hello? I think you broke up a bit there.
Naeem, I was just asking, I was trying to find out, how would you define the latest spate of attacks in Afghanistan?
I think when we look at things in Afghanistan at the moment, we see it's a 17-year war. And, unfortunately, for things to stabilize, we need to start seeing a much more focus on institutions as opposed to individuals and parties. And this is what currently is happening at the moment, and is actually seeing the crisis worsen. We even see a small fringe of ISIS here. We see the regional playing starting more with Iran's support for factions within the Taliban. And so it's becoming a lot more regionalized, a lot more fragmented, as people start or stop trying to find a political solution and continue on their current trajectory.
Now, the U.S. has had boots on the ground trying to quash the Taliban for some time. Are they winning this war?
I think, when we're looking at this war, and it's not about necessarily winning, it's just the fact that the Taliban is staying so significant and so alive 17 years after the offensive, which kind of shows that the Afghan government is failing, that the Taliban is actually being able to still stay in the game, they actually in a sense by causing the stalemate, the Taliban and many within the other factions are actually winning the war, especially because we're seeing countries such as Australia, New Zealand, pressure being placed on them from their populations to pull out troops. And once this happens, it kind of shows that the Afghan government now only is in power because of this external support. And if it's removed, the government would largely collapse.
Now, Naeem, why is the Taliban still so relevant at this point in time? As you mentioned that it's 17 years later, they're still quite strong. Why are they still relevant present day today? And what solutions would you prescribe as for the crisis in that country?
I think why are they still relevant? And I think that it kind of shows, the relevancy shows that the war itself was actually, the external or the international community backing one side within a conflict. And and that the side didn't have much legitimacy. So corruption has increased, continued under the Afghan government. There's been no services, and so in this situation, there's invariably going to be support for the other, especially because of the fact that many of these drone attacks and these air attacks have actually killed innocent civilians. And so in looking at that and in looking at that, we need to find a solution that actually incorporates the Taliban into the political process because of the endurance and the enduring support. And unfortunately, when we look at what's currently happening, we look at, previously the Taliban were mooted to be allowed to operate an office in Qatar, for example, for negotiations purposes. But we see the Trump administration last year choose to surge forces in Afghanistan. So we're seeing this military approach. And this military approach, unfortunately, hasn't been successful for the past 17 years. It's not likely to have much more success, in the upcoming years, unless it's coupled with a proper political solution within Taliban to the negotiation table, and ostensibly with the end goal of forming a political party.
Naeem, unfortunately, we have run out of time. We have to leave it there for now. Thank you so much for joining us on The Globe. Time now for a quick break. More news when we return. Stay with us.